That's a bit.
All right, okay, that's better. If you do want to speak later on, just press the button and I'll bring you in. And these meetings are webcast.
Correct.
Yeah, so like always, we will be on our best behaviour. Item 2, declaration of disclosable pecuniary interest. If anybody's got any interest, please complete the form. I'm assuming you've got a form that we fill, or let the committee clerk know, Miles, and we'll record that interest, whatever it is. Item 3, any exempt information. Is anything on the agenda that needs exemption?
Yes. No, Chair, but there is an additional item that Carl Oxford is leading workshop in private at the end of this meeting.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. At the end of the meeting, after item 12, please can I ask members to stay behind? This call's going to give us 10 minutes, you need, Carl? 10 minutes. Yeah, so 5 minutes are there for you to give a quick intro and then a few minutes for questions. Thank you very much. And that'll be an informed session, so meeting will be closed then. Okay, thank you very much. Item 4, minutes of meeting held on the 19th of October. Are they a correct record? Yep, thank you.
The only comment is I did attend the meeting. I did double checked actually. I thought I did, but I'm not listed as being present.
Right, okay, so can we amend that, please?
Yes, thank you.
I was there, wasn't I? I can't remember that far back.
We'll address that. I definitely remember you being here, Martin. So that's fine.
I've got that many meetings that I'll go to, right? Yes, I can't remember. I can't remember when I'm at home last. Anyway, so there, correct record. We'll make that amendment that you mentioned, Martin. Besides that, are we okay with approving the minutes? Chair's update, a few things from myself. Firstly, Convention for the North. That's going to be held tomorrow in Manchester. So I hope to be there by 8 o'clock. I'm hoping that the trains are running on time because I've been looking at various social media posts and trains back and forth to Manchester, the Transpennine route. People can't get there, so I'm hoping that I will get there by 8 o'clock and then make my way to wherever I need to be. This is something that is organised by Convention for the North leaders and various business leaders across the North. They come together, and I think it was Nick Ford, wasn't it, previous Newcastle leader, that set it up. Yeah. He's no longer the leader, but it's now chaired by... who's it chaired by now?
So Andy Burnham's chairing it this year.
Right, okay,
yeah.
Right. So we've got the right person to chair it. Hence it's in Manchester. Celebrating the North and outline our unique value propositions and growth opportunities and the investment potential for the North. It will also set a series of propositions to government and the position of the North in terms of what we can do, because obviously there's been a lot of reports, especially recently, around that gap is getting bigger. And one of the things that we understand, and I'll try not to get party political, but last 12 years, obviously there's been a lot of public sector clawback in terms of austerity. But one of the things that we've not really seen, and again, experts have actually provided a lot of analysis on this, we've not really seen that growth that we wanted since 2010. And we see that now, not just in public services, but we see that in infrastructure, we see that in transport, we see that in education, skills, business, and it's a real opportunity for us to actually really put a new roadmap out. Michael Gove is going to be there. I met him, was it last year? When he came to Leeds. I'll cover that in terms of levelling up bids that we put in. But it's going to be an opportunity to actually showcase what the North potential is and what it can offer. The other item is, I want to give you a quick update, is LEP integration, the publication of the Levelling Up white paper, which came out last year. It provided clarity for LEPs with the Medal Combined Authority and what the growth areas are. Following this, in July 2022, a LEP integration plan for West Yorkshire was submitted to government. Ministers had a look at that and they've endorsed the plan. Combined Authority is going to meet on the 2nd of February, where we will consider what it sets out and the next steps to fully integrate the LEP into the Combined Authority, including the governance arrangements required and the importance of recruitment to the new LEP chair. Because we've got interim chair, Matt Roberts, is doing some fantastic work, but we'll have to go through a formal process. But putting that on one side, since I've been the leader and the previous LEP chair, Roger Marsh, one of the things I keep on telling people is that true partnership between the public sector and the private sector and universities and the voluntary sector is very, very unique. And that's why some of the great work we've done up to now has been exemplar. And you can get all the structures in the world, but if you don't get that relationship right, then you don't actually get the totality of the system working. And that's where I'm coming from, and that's where the other 5 West Yorkshire leaders and the mayor of the combined authority is coming from, because we have to make sure that industry, business, private sector, public sector, NHS all works in tandem together, because only then we can actually deliver the shared outcomes. So I'm really looking forward to actually that integration, so we can actually start getting business done. The other item on the agenda is the levelling up bids that we were so eager to hear of, and they were announced last week. Obviously, commiserations to the West Yorkshire 4 local authorities. Well, there's 5, but 4 local authorities didn't get any of their bids approved, and I understand they all put some fantastic bids in. In Kirklees, we put 4 bids in, but we were one of the fortunate ones that we managed to get one of our bids approved for Batley, which will bring in £12 million plus £3 million from the combined authority. And if you look at the added value that will generate, the £60 million potential private sector investment that could come into Batley, so you can see the potential is there. But I've been making some inquiries regarding why didn't this bid get through and this bid didn't get through, and again, not to get too political, but from what I'm picking up from my sources nationally is that they were called in at the last minute to number 10, and they had a re-look at what was submitted, and one of the, and again, it's just hearsay, so we don't want to mean anything. But obviously, we webcast. Yeah, we webcast, right? Yeah, but I will say it because it's not. I think there's been a lot of speculation around this. But the criteria was changed, and we need a system that is actually very robust, very transparent, and very fair, because it's public money. And one of the things that I will keep on batting for with other leaders is to make sure that gap that is forever widening is narrowed, because we have the evidence. We also have the evidence in terms of what West Yorkshire and the North can do in terms of actually giving UK PLC that extra bang for its buck. But I'll leave it there before I stray too much into an area that I don't need to be. But anyway, great news for Kirklees, not for the whole of Kirklees, but overall bad news for West Yorkshire. But we will keep on batting. That's all I had to say on the chair's briefing. Item 6, crisis in the cost of living and doing business. Basically, I like to think that the forecast that are being given to us by the Treasury and National Government is good news, but there's still significant challenges in the system. We all know that our own household bills, energy bills, are going up exponentially. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he paid £1,000 in gas and electric, and I thought I was paying a lot, but when I compared his bill, £1,000, he's got a big house, he's got lights everywhere and underfloor heating and whatever. But one of the other things that I'm really worried about is the energy crisis regarding businesses, and what we're doing is we're trying to lobby government to actually get more support, and you probably heard that a number of leisure centres, swimming pools are going to be on the brink of closure. In Kirklees, we've actually sort of temporarily mothballed 3, and what we're doing through the LGA and the private leisure industry is to lobby government to actually provide the same support that they are doing for the other businesses. Because I don't know if you know, but if you're a leisure centre or a sports centre or a swimming pool, you cannot access the additional grant. Although the grant is just a grant, it's not the full cost for what it's costing them. If you're an art establishment or a museum or an art gallery or a library, you can actually access the grants. And we know that leisure centres and sports facilities, and especially swimming pools, are part of that wellbeing agenda. So we hopefully going to be lobbying government for that. But what I will do is I'll ask Tom Purvis to introduce.
Patrick, sorry, last minute.
All right, so we changed the names, right? Yeah. So Tom is now Patrick. Patrick, over to you.
Thank you very much. It's a fairly substantial report, so I'll try and pull out some of the key points if that's all right. So, Councillor Pandor, you did talk there about evidence and the context of the performance in West Yorkshire. So it's worth saying that we published just before Christmas the latest version of our State of the Region report, which gives all of that evidence, that rich evidence in terms of how we are performing as a region. And the report itself contains the full report, and you'll have access via the report as well to all of the links and the resources that we've created. There's a main report, there's a compendium EDI report, and there's a sort of a State of the Region dashboard we produced, and all you should have via the report. You'll have access to all of those. I think some of the key points from that report, when it's published just before Christmas, productivity is on the increase, but structurally we've still got a gap in terms of performance for the rest of the UK, and that's whether you include London or you don't include London. So there's still a performance gap in terms of productivity. It's a longer run structural sort of phenomena. The labour force is better qualified, and that's set out so quite clearly in State of the Region. But we've still got challenges, particularly on high level skill sets. But there are some really strong points as well. West Yorkshire's digital infrastructure perhaps amongst the best in the UK, particularly our strengths in terms relating to gigabit capable and 4G mobile coverage. So the report is effectively a compendium of our progress, and it's tied to a range of indicators, kind of 40 core indicators that we use to monitor our progress. Turning to the macroeconomy, you will all know where we are. I think a lot of the macroeconomic data. So in terms of where we are, we've published inflation. Inflation is now at 10.7%, having fallen from 11.1%, and that's November. It's important to say, doesn't necessarily mean that inflation is contracting. It means it's just rising less quickly than it previously had done, and it's worth flagging up as well. The main reasons why it sort of fell slightly back was because of lower fuel costs and lower second-hand car prices. Some of the underlying drivers of inflation, particularly around food inflation, are still there in the system. So for instance, food inflation is 16.7% in the 12 months to November. That's the highest it's been since September 1977. It's also worth sort of forecasting as well. We're not really out of the woods in terms of where we are in terms of energy costs. So in terms of the energy price guarantee, which will go up to £2,800, I think a number of organisations, particularly Cornwall Insights, are forecasting that the cap will be around £2,800. And this sort of undercuts the current energy price cap by about £200. Worth flagging up as well some of the contextual information where we are with the Bank of England. The Bank of England met on the 15th of December. It will meet again on the 2nd of February. At that meeting, it voted by 63 in favour of an increase in the base rate by 50 basis points to 3.5%. And I better move my coffee here, there, and I'll spill it on my colleague. So we'll know more about where we are in terms of February. GDP data, we've got new GDP data. It was released just before Christmas on the 22nd of December, and that covers the 3 months that, in the third quarter of 2022. And that shows that GDP contracted by 0.3% compared to a 0.1% increase in output the quarter before. It's mainly driven by contraction in manufacturing and production industries. There is growth in the service sector, but it's fairly anemic at 0.1%. It's worth also flagging up, the paper highlights that. I won't dwell too much, and this is not a particularly positive economic story, but that performance is widely regarded as the worst amongst the G7. And probably explains why most of the forecasting houses and the OBR and indeed the bank think that the depth of the recession in 2023 will be longer and slower in terms of recovery in the UK compared to some of our other G7 counterparts, because we've got a number of other structural sort of features at work, which mean it's quite a challenge for us. Also flag as well, a range of information has been released in terms of the census of population, and a lot of information has been released relating to the labour market. And some information is containing the report on that. It's worth pointing out, though, that the census was held at a time when we were in lockdown. So when people ask the question about if they're in employment and if they're economically active, it's obviously influenced by the fact that many people are in lockdown. But still, at that point in time, something like 59.3% or 1.1 million people in West Yorkshire said they were economically active or looking for work. So it gives you some idea that of say the benefits, for instance, of the furlough scheme in terms of keeping people economically active, and that's reflected, I think, as well at the moment by the overall strength of the labour market. We have a particularly strong labour market at the moment. Well, the government announced in December as well. They announced a range of things just before Christmas that there will be a spring statement in March, 15th of March. Just flagging that one up, and the Combined Authority will obviously be making a submission into the spring statement. In terms of key business years, I don't dwell too much on it. I think the main thing to focus on is we do now have more insight in terms of what's happening with the energy bill discount scheme. and the fact that it's going to be replaced by a thing called the Energy Bill Relief Scheme, which will be in place up to the the Energy Bill Discount Scheme will replace the Energy Bill Relief Scheme, get the acronyms right, and that scheme will be in place up to March 2024. The Energy Bill Discount Scheme will offer businesses and public sector organisations discounts for their wholesale gas and electricity prices. There is sectoral variation, so not all businesses will receive the same form of discount, and there are additional discounts for those operating in energy and trade intensive industries. So the government has published a list as to those sectors that are eligible for higher levels of support, and that's appended to the report as Appendix 2. And there are some interesting sort of anomalies in that in terms of what's included and what isn't included. But I think Councillor Pando touched on that. It's worth saying that the scheme presents an overall reduction in support compared to the current scheme of around about 66%. Particularly smaller businesses, I think, are particularly at the sort of risk here, that who are less likely to operate in the energy and trade intensive industries, and particularly industries those in sort of cultural, creative, and sort of high street sort of activities. You probably are likely to find it quite challenging. Also recognising where we are, the current state of the economy. What does that mean in terms of businesses? Well, we do know from analysis that we've done there are something like just under 3,000 businesses in West Yorkshire that would qualify for that extra level of support in terms of being energy and trade intensive industries. That's something like 2% of all businesses in West Yorkshire, and that compares to 1.4% of businesses, similar businesses nationally. So that reflects the fact we've got sort of particular strengths in manufacturing, and there are more manufacturing sectors on that list of energy intensive sectors. So I think it just reflects that as well. In terms of some of the key household messages, and again, its focuses again is on sort of cost of living and energy costs. The End Fuel Poverty Coalition have produced updated forecasts which reflect on fuel poverty in both November and April 2023, the latter being when the energy price guarantee will rise to £3,000 and the £400 energy bill relief scheme will be withdrawn. I think the key takeaways from that, based on those estimates, are that in West Yorkshire this means that 39% of households are currently in fuel poverty, based on the estimates of the Fuel Poverty Coalition. And based on what's likely to happen in March, they believe this will rise to 48%. That's essentially almost 1 in 2 households, and that compares with an estimate of 36% nationally. So it underlines the scale of the challenge facing households in West Yorkshire. A bunch of other information has been published, updated information from ONS on wage and wage increases. Wages are increasing. And in normal circumstances, 7.3% increase in sort of median pay would be very, very welcome. But that rate of increase is effectively, in real terms, given the challenges that households are facing, is effectively a contraction. We do know that rate of increase is similar to what we've seen nationally, but it's actually lower than the rate of increase in median pay in places like sort of Greater Manchester and West Midlands, which are running probably at least 1.5 percentage points higher than that. In terms of what we're doing on this, in terms of regional response, well, as you know, in October the Combined Authority approved a package of support with the cost of living and doing business, and that includes support for businesses with energy efficiency. So we have a scheme progressing through very shortly with the launch of a grants package which will provide support for of up to £5,000 at 50% of project costs for small businesses. Procurement of that sort of project and our delivery partner has been undertaken by the Combined Authority, and the scheme launched on the 8th of December. Just to mention as well, at the time of publication, over 200 eligible businesses have submitted an expression of interest to that scheme, so you can get some idea of the kind of latent demand that there is there. As you know, the Mayoral Combined Authority also is developing support for vulnerable communities, so a new £3 million cost of living fund was agreed again at the same meeting, a Combined Authority meeting in October, and to help respond to the cost of living crisis, we're working, this is via our local authority partners, and is to help us fund voluntary and community organisations who are helping to connect those who have been failed by the labour market in terms of access to good jobs and good work. The CA has signed funding agreements with each of the local authorities, and initial grant payments have commenced, so delivery has begun on that scheme. So it's worth signalling just exactly how quickly that scheme was implemented and passed through our assurance framework. Also to mention as well, in terms of what we're doing on the employment side, Employment West Yorkshire, which is a working title, is a scheme which is being delivered by local authorities and will support up to 7,700 people towards work and to get back into work. The service will ensure continuity from existing employment hubs, which will have supported over 10,000 people to date, and an activity will commence on this scheme from April 2023. There's also a number of elements in that, particularly focusing on pathways into green jobs and with digital skills as well. This service will also complement with existing activities such as Skills Connect, which is an adult skills training package with over 30 courses, and it's also worth flagging out as well at the Employment West Yorkshire scheme. Again, some of these schemes are working titles, which is a £6 million programme which has been established to help pre-start-up businesses and those exploring enterprise. So a series of workshops will be developed under that package of support. Also worth flagging up, the Combined Authority and the West Yorkshire Health and Care Partnership have issued a joint statement and action plan to support with mental and physical wellbeing, and some of the key priorities for that are sort of set out in the paper. In terms of our asks of government, in early October, this is prior to the announcement of the EBRS replacement scheme, the Combined Authority submitted its views to government as part of the energy price cap review, and various sort of letters were sent to the Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and from the LEP chair, those various sort of letters are appended to Annex 3. Just worth flagging up to the key points in those asks. At the time we had of government, we wanted government to commit to supporting energy intensive and enhanced those businesses at enhanced risk. We wanted a more structured approach to the delivery of energy efficiency and low carbon heating for our businesses, backed by funding promises. And we wanted government to progress plans around investing in energy generation as outlined in the UK Energy Security Strategy. And the Mayor also followed up with as part of the autumn statement with a letter to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, again which is appended at Annex 4 in this report. I think I mentioned there as well, we will be priming ourselves for response to the spring budget, and obviously we will be building on a number of the kind of asks that we've already submitted to government. So I'm conscious I've stepped through quite a lot there. There's quite a lot of content in the report, and so back to you, Chair, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks very much for that very comprehensive report. Any questions or comments from any members? Andrew?
Yeah, I just had a question. Quite a lot of the input here was kind of pre the rail problems and the general transport mayhem, wasn't it? What effect do we think is that going to have on, for example, GDP?
Did you hear that?
Yes, I did indeed. Yeah. We've not actually sort of quantified that, but we do know that those strikes have an incremental effect on retail footfall, particularly in Leeds. So we've done some work on profiling the impact of sort of retail footfall. We haven't done any work specifically working out the impact on GDP, but we can, we could do that. But we do know the impact on retail footfall in the centre of Leeds. So we do publish a separate report, which is not contained in this, which gives some insight on those.
Good, thanks. I just think it could be part of the lobbying that we're doing, really, just to make sure that everybody is really thinking about the real cost of the continuing problems.
Yeah.
Just to add, Chair, because it's relevant, a similar debate is going on at the Culture, Heritage and Sport Committee, directly focused on town and city centre economy and the impact of the energy crisis, as Patrick's alluded to, being particularly felt hard by those types of businesses, but also the impact of transport, particularly over the run up to Christmas, which is obviously a key moment for the hospitality sector in terms of Christmas parties and so on, and rail strikes impacting those as well. So that's something we're trying to understand better. So it's been looked at the Culture Committee, but was also relevant to this committee, as they are part of the business community as well.
Thanks. I just wanted to agree with the focus on the asks of government around energy security for the future, not just for this region but for the whole country. I think this is a really important area for the long term, and that whatever we can do to reduce that insecurity and invest in new technologies and research that relates to those, I think it's a good thing. So we should be thinking long term on some of this, so we don't have the same kind of dependence on outside countries.
Yeah, do you want to respond?
Yes, I mean, I think we'll continue that sort of focus. I think in the response to the spring statement, any opportunity we get to focus on sort of long-term sort of energy security and in terms of the nature and the type of the energy that we're generating, you know, any opportunity we get to reinforce those messages, I think we're being very consistent on that and just keep repeating that message.
Thank you, Patrick. Anybody else? Yes, Paul?
Thank you, Patrick. Paul Winder Singh from Kirklees College. I'm just, it's really comprehensive report, a lot of information, you know, a lot to digest, even in 2 sittings of it. So, what is it that you would suggest is the 3 takeaways from this report in the short term, the medium term, and the long term? So, a couple of things that I've been thinking about, just to give you some thinking, or suggestions, is how the committee can support within the communication of elements of the report to reach some of the initiatives that the mayor has put forward in the region. And then there's obviously the medium term for the lobbying, for the March spending review. If there's anything that we could do as employers or employees within the region to support with lobbying with MPs or etc. I'm just trying to think, what is because there's a lot there, you know, what is it that we as a committee could do with this information? If there's any 3 things that you could suggest, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Getting the protocol there. I can give you my take on the short, medium and long term, and I know that other colleagues will sort of chip in. I mean, in the short term, I think the fundamental challenge we face is that facing our sort of regional households and our regional businesses, but particularly the challenges that our households are facing, certainly over the next 6 months. The burden of energy costs as a function of household income is likely to increase. You know, so I think I think that really is a particular short-term challenge. The medium term, it's what we're doing to address that. So if you look at the Mayor's cost of living vulnerability support package for voluntary sector organisations, the kind of grant support we're providing to small businesses, that scheme now in retrospect is even more important given the kind of gaps in the replacement for EBRS and the fact that some of the smaller businesses and those operating in hospitality are likely to face the greatest challenges and get the least support. And so it's the nature of where we can, as a combined authority and as a group of partners, make a difference. And I think some of those choices that we made, I think now have proven to be helpful. And I think in the long term, it's kind of like it's continuing to emphasise to government. I think some of the fundamental structural challenges and needs that we have for West Yorkshire, so particularly what the point that Sue made there in terms of sort of what we need to do in terms of energy and about energy security and sustainability. It's not just a macroeconomic strategic issue for the country. It's actually important to our households and you know, in terms of that energy security and sustainability. So I think that would be my take in it, but I've no doubt other colleagues may want to contribute.
Henry, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to add a bit of context to that. It's a very timely question, thank you. So just in terms of the energy, emergency energy grants that Patrick referenced in his presentation, so we've had over 500 expressions of interest now from businesses, and going on for 120 applications from small businesses are actually in the system. We've awarded about a dozen of those so far, with an average grant of £3,500 per business. So we're getting a lot of interest in those grants, and I think the £1.1 million budget will easily be allocated by the end of this current financial year. It's important to stress that they are grants. They're not grants directly to help with paying bills. They are grants to support businesses to make investments that would help to reduce their energy usage and be more energy efficient as operators. So I guess that's partly the short-term answer. It's also worth stressing that Mark's pointing out that the most popular sector that's applied for those grants today is retail, hospitality and leisure, which I think is pretty positive, because we've not really had offers in the business support space for those sectors for a variety of reasons. But that's obviously where there is a lot of demand. And then I guess my answer on the medium point to your question would be that we are moving into our new business sustainability programme from April, which is a £10 million programme of support for 3 years. And that's going to be looking at more holistic support around energy efficiency, resource efficiency, recycling, reusing, flood prevention, a whole range of support for businesses to hopefully put them in a better position to try to contend with some of these ongoing challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that wants to make any comments or any? Neville?
Yeah, just, I mean, I know the Mayor introduced for example, the £2 bus fares recently as well, so I just wondered, other big ticket items like transport that sometimes might to the bottom of the list because we've got an energy crisis, but I just wonder if we look at just measure the impact of something like that, how that enables people to move around in the economy as well, and just see if that is giving us a boost. Is that something worth pursuing in the long term as well? Sorry.
Yeah, good idea, but just a £2, I'll bring Patrick and anybody else who wants to come in, but on the £2 bus fare, it was a success, but at the same time, if anybody was charging less than £2, they could then charge £2. So you know, it's quite a complex area, but Patrick, do you want to?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we are undertaking that assessment, and I think a report will be presented to the next Transport Committee, which will set out sort of an assessment of the first 3 months of base fares and the kind of sort of benefits that we've seen from the scheme in the first 3 months. So I can't go into too much detail on that, but it will be presented in the next Transport Committee, I believe.
Anybody else? Well, I'll try and answer Paul Vinder's question, right? You know, what are the three big things that are coming to me as leader who actually goes up and down the country and also travels around Europe for the stuff I do around Europe. What I'm seeing, and again, you know, we might need to just sort of reflect on this when we're discussing the West Yorkshire Plan, because that's where the economic strategy and the aims and objectives will sort of be solidified. But the way I look at it across the sector, the markets are failing. You know, regarding, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a massive multinational or a small retailer on the corner shop, or if you're a takeaway, you know, they are failing because you can't keep on increasing your costs. You know, because you can't allow inflation to just run away and give people more money. You know, that's not an answer. The other thing is public services are failing as well. You know, because my council, what it was like 12 years ago isn't the same as it is now, and that will be true for any other council. It doesn't matter if it's a Tory Shire down south or a Labour or any other colour council run up north. You know, we are all facing the same kind of issues. So public service is a big issue, and if we've already taken out 2.2 billion, that's what it equates to for Kirklees over the last 12 years, then we can't take any more out unless things are going to fall over. And the other big thing for me is ambition. When I say ambition, I'm talking about infrastructure, skills, education, the whole thing. You have to have that ambition there. So we've got three major components, in my view, from what I can see, that need addressing at the same time. And if anybody's got a solution, they've got a bigger brain than I have, but these are the top three things that come to my mind. But I'm sure we can talk about that under the West Yorkshire Plan, because I think there's still a lot more work to do on that. Can we move on to item 7, health tech update 1 year on, which is something that the committee has been developing for just over a year, and it was signed off over a year ago. The item, which I'm sure colleagues will acknowledge, recognises and celebrates the progress made by taking a focused approach to a key subsector of our regional economy. Health tech is something that West Yorkshire is known for, and we've been working on that for a number of meetings. And like I say, it's the first year that we've actually sort of like it's been there for 1 year, and it's been well recognised nationally and beyond. We've also had support from the Gain Share through a dedicated resource and efforts to support this crucial sector, and it will continue to do so as we drive forward our activity, which is encompassed in the health tech trust strategy. Is it Steph Oliver Beach? Steph, over to you to tell us all about this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pendle. Thanks for the opportunity to bring an update at this point in time, and to hopefully to hear the views of the committee as well. I'll give you an overview of our work fairly briefly, and Tom's here as well, my colleague from Trade and Investment, who focuses on life sciences. He'll talk about the in-depth work around that. So just for everyone's benefit in the room, in case you're not sure exactly what we mean by health tech, that term describes a really broad range of products and services and technologies that are all geared towards improving and saving people's lives right from right from prevention through to early identification, diagnosis and cure. So it can, I gave some examples in the first paragraph of the paper. And as you said, West Yorkshire is really consistently identified as one of the UK's leading locations, both for businesses working in that space, but also in terms of the public sector, community sector, clinical infrastructure that we have. And we're excited to see technologies that are emerging at the convergence between those subsectors of health tech, so medical devices that are also powered through AI and digital. So as I said, we've got a cluster of businesses here that's well documented, well recognised, and it interweaves with the clinical and academic strengths that we've got, and ultimately means that this area is quite an important force for the UK life sciences sector as a whole, and that's why we developed the health tech strategy and we're continuing to focus on that work. Colleagues in the room will know businesses are operating in a very globally competitive, globally growing market as well, and the significance of all of that is thrown into sharp relief, particularly since the pandemic, whether that's in digital health or in diagnostic tools that help us to identify illness, for example. So within the region, this is a really great opportunity, a really important growth opportunity. Touching on what you were talking about, Patrick, this is an opportunity for us to keep strengthening and building towards the future. And the products from health tech make a difference for people's lives and the NHS. So as I said, we've launched the health tech strategy towards the end of last year, actually, and we did that during the Innovation Festival, and in partnership with our colleagues in the Health and Care partnership, who have developed an innovation hub to help streamline the process of new products making a difference for patients. We threw a spotlight during the launch onto lots of assets, including the National Health Innovation Campus that's coming forward at Huddersfield, but I could be here for ages listing all the assets that we've got, and colleagues around the table will be quite closely familiar. So following the launch of that festival, following the launch of the strategy, we quickly went into making an application to Innovate UK for launchpad status for our health tech business cluster. And we're waiting on the outcome of that, but if it's successful, it will mean that we actually will be partnering with Innovate to see an injection of focused resources and services that would be targeted to health tech companies. So we've got everything crossed, as partners have who supported that application. We've also, as a combined authority, taken on hosting the networking facility that exists currently for the region, which is the health tech cluster. And we want to grow and expand the way that works, increase involvement of businesses in that as well, so that we're continuing to build a really strong, well-aligned ecosystem that can take advantage of all the opportunities. As I mentioned, Tom will speak a bit about trade and investment, but that's work that predates the health tech strategy and continues into the distance, and it is a huge array of work within that itself. So the year coming will be a really key year as we start to build on and consolidate these foundations. There are some areas of focus that I've picked out particularly that we're working up plans for. So around funding, we know that funding is a really vital issue for health tech companies, whether that's really early stage, looking for support to demonstrate and prove their products, prove that they work, or test and rapidly change path, right through to navigating the regulatory system, which is extremely complex and uncertain in this country presently, right through to subsequent rounds of funding that are needed by bigger companies to make their to kind of scale and grow. So as I said, we submitted the Launchpad application, but irrespective of the outcome of that, we'll be working across the funding landscape to identify opportunities to address this need. Market access is a huge area, and that's something that this committee could spend a long time talking about if we wanted to, but there are other forums that are closely looking at that. But the takeaway is that we're working with our partners in the health and care system to try and streamline routes for new products, new innovations to be tested and rolled out rapidly, and making sure that those products meet what's needed in the health and care system, not purely what's pushed towards them from a market perspective. Promoting the region is a real priority, and whilst we have this great reputation, there is a lot more that we can do to sing very loudly about the impact that we have here and the opportunities. We're also looking at developing a prospectus on the market opportunity around life sciences infrastructure and real estate to help to inform and support partners who are looking for investment. And as it mentions, we'll continue convening the ecosystem, working with a range of strategic partners to do that. The final element is around developing our pipeline. So as I said earlier, this is a really prime growth opportunity for us. There's a chance to make something of lasting value and benefit here, and it's really important that we engage within the CA on those pipeline opportunities as well. So that's an ongoing development piece that means that we can then identify where there are appropriate funding sources and we can support regional investment. Tom, do you want to say a little bit about trade and investment specifically?
Thank you,
Thanks.
Stephanie, for the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Chair, as well, for highlighting this area. And I just want to say, to begin with that, in trade and investment, we've been really privileged this year to be able to utilise and leverage the health tech strategy and promote that as an area of strength for the economy within West Yorkshire. To start and take a step back, the NHS is still considered to be a gold standard internationally as a healthcare market in which to operate, and it attracts a lot of interest from international markets despite what we know is the current challenges that are prevalent in the news. We're recognised very widely now within the UK and internationally as a very strong ecosystem to enter the UK market. And the reasons behind that are multiple, but they can be boiled down into three areas or three unique characteristics that we have in the region which allow those international companies to enter the UK market. And they are access to an ecosystem, many of whom the partners of which are sat around this table today. There's an access to internationally recognised and internationally excellent talent produced by our 7 universities. And then finally, it's the major thing, which is access to market. All international companies that want to work with the NHS need to, especially in our highly regulated marketplace, need to work with NHS clinicians in order to pilot or to trial their solution, no matter how big they are or how small they are. So we need to help them to facilitate that. And we are getting a reputation in the region for having open doors, with having a collaborative ecosystem that help to achieve that process. In the last year alone, we've managed to pivot our strategy a little bit to focus around opportunities that we see in the international market that we see as really prevalent for West Yorkshire. We are working with some really innovative, smaller markets such as the Nordics, Estonia and Israel, who are really innovative marketplaces that can produce really good sandboxes for digital health, in particular health tech, but have limited abilities to scale within their own regional geographies. We are positioning West Yorkshire as the entry point to the next point in their journey, as a scale-up option, as an entry point to the UK for them to scale and then to internationalise in other markets, and we're getting a strong reputation to be able to do that. On the flip side of that, larger markets like the US, India, Canada and China, for example, we see ourselves still as the entry point for those markets when they want to come into a universal healthcare system that is highly regulated, and so we position ourselves in West Yorkshire as the landing zone for them to enter the NHS and then to scale in other areas such as in Europe. We're building that reputation across multiple markets. So in the last year alone, we've had delegations from Estonia, Israel, the US, India, and the Nordics. And in particular, we've seen relative success with those. For example, 5 of the businesses that visited from the US in March, 3 of which have landed now in the region. We've also carried on a delegation of 8 businesses visiting from the Nordics, and 3 or 4 of those are looking to settle into the region. And in the future, we'll continue to promote this element of representation for the region as an area of strength in health tech. In the next couple of weeks, we will be visiting Arab Health alongside the Mayor, and we will also be taking part in trips potentially to India and the Philippines to develop relationships there from an export and inward investment perspective. Thank you.
No, I think that's probably everything for now, but if anyone's got any comments or questions, it'd be great to hear.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions, any observations? Richard?
Hi. Rich Paxman, Paxman Scalp Cooling. We, of course, are wholly supportive of what you've put together, really excited about your approach. Just reading through the report and looking at things, a couple of comments and observations. From my perspective, I know we talk about the EU and that potential market. It's really becoming a much more difficult place to operate in, so I'd probably pivot and make sure the US is probably an easier landing space, which seems crazy. Even a few years ago, that would have been very different. We've talked about Huddersfield University and the campus there, which is great. I didn't get to that. Looking at our healthy life expectancy of the region alone, which is pretty scary compared to national levels, I think it was a real impetus to spend more money in this area on health tech. I think it was quite scary to look at, to be honest. I think it was about 10 years on average difference, so good to see that. For me, the NHS and how we work with them, it's very much about deployment. So they're very good at wanting to look at and test products and spend money with them, which can be expensive, but actually we want them to buy our products, and that seems to be a constant barrier and has been in the 15 years I've been in health tech. So that must change, and it has to start here in Leeds and our local area. And if that doesn't happen, it'll never get deployed, so it's a non-starter. And then on top of that, you've touched on the regulatory piece. I think that's really important. That is one of the biggest barriers at the moment. We've just got our MDR certification today. We're very proud of that. Probably one of the only small companies in the region that have managed to do it. But you know, companies need support in getting over that hurdle. It's difficult. And then I think the academic health science networks are wonderful. I know ABHI are within your discussions, which is really important, but you must get Medilink around the table and really force them to the table, because they operate locally and they have a local voice for our sort of companies, not the southern voice, which is ABHI. So I urge you to look at that, but really pleased with the opportunities. So thank you. And the work that you're doing, by the way, in the trades is fantastic, and the India relationships that you've helped us with is great, so thank you.
That's great, Richard. Good feedback there. Martin?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I thought it's an excellent paper, and a lot of progress has been made in the last year. So again, thank you. I think there's 3 points I'd like to make. The first one, very quickly, it talks about acute trusts. I think we should be thinking more broadly about mental health and community trusts as well, because they're going to be playing a bigger and bigger role in the future. I think there's a piece about the international connectivity. So again, what's been done, I think, in the last year is great in terms of the companies that we've seen move into the region. And I think, we've had 10 foreign, mainly digital health companies actually move into Nexus, which is great. And again, that's through partnership and collaboration, obviously with your team, with the Academic Health Science Network. But I do wonder whether we have a bigger opportunity, thinking about how do we think more strategically, how do we include more parties, the right organisations into that. But I do wonder whether we have a stronger proposition, we could create a stronger proposition, and we could advertise that more. The question is, what is that going to take? And ultimately, that's resources. So I think I put that on the table because I think there is a big opportunity for West Yorkshire there if we wanted to get serious about that. And then the last point, again, an observation, a lot of what we do and differentiates what we do is around inclusive growth. And I think that's great. Again, I wonder whether we should be more targeted to start thinking about companies that address health inequalities. Clearly, all the companies we're talking about have an impact on health, but could we be more targeted? So again, we've thought from a Nexus perspective, and again, particularly in terms of the way that connects with the university strategy, and our focus is going to be very much around tech companies that drive health inequalities and will actually make a real difference in that space. So again, that's just a comment, just as I say, just to think about. So,
anybody want to respond to that? I'm just asking officers. Anybody, any of the officers want to? And then before I bring the members of the committee.
Yeah, thanks both Richard and Martin for that. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Maybe we spoke in the paper about acute trust, but it's certainly not the intention to work only with them. I think some of the infrastructure that's in place, particularly in Leeds, at the Teaching Hospital Trust, is obviously really prime for access. But I know that through the Innovation Hub, they're actually working on a digital primary care innovation programme as well there. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree. I agree regarding resources, and to make that proposition strong, I think that's what we need to be looking at, is investing further into banging the drum and bringing everything together in a really coherent way. That's something that we can do, but we have to commit to do that. And I've been in the conversations with colleagues at Nexus around the targeting of companies to become members who will make a positive impact on health inequality. I fully support that. I can't see that there's any other way that we should be going, and if we're doing future calls, we want to write that into those specifications, that sort of thing, so that we're making tangible progress through this medium.
Okay, what I'll do is that there's a few more people, so I'll take all the comments, and then if you officers want to come back in and respond, so if I get the order wrong, please forgive me, but I think it was Sue next.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to welcome all the work that's been done on this area, particularly the coordination of all the different actors and agencies. There's a huge number of people and assets, and thank you for pulling it all together. And I'd like to testify to that flow of the pipeline that has been coming through also to Thraimbeke and the University of Huddersfield. We've had Nordics, we've had India, we've had other interest there that is starting to form a really nice pipeline towards that health innovation campus. So there's definitely something in there in terms of demand. There's another link I wanted to make to something that was announced before Christmas by the government, this idea of investment zones for areas with universities in left behind areas. So we're particularly interested in whether that can also help attract companies to the Health Innovation Campus, which aligns with the Station to Stadium area in Kirklees. Because that feels really neat, and we know that the policy on this is not well developed nationally yet. They're still consulting on it, but if those two things can sort of support each other, that would be a really good way of incentivising even more these kind of companies to cluster around the universities that got assets in that space. Thank you.
Thank you. So next person I've got is Neville.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just to commend the report. It's fantastic. I think one of the strengths in the region is the ability for everybody in the room to work together quite collaboratively, and egos get put to one side. And I think the work pulling this together, I think, is a good demonstration of that. I guess there's two things that I'd like to maybe have the room think about. I think one of them is metrics. How do we really measure success in this area? I think we need to think about jobs and investment leverage and talk more about that when we have those metrics, because it just closes the virtuous circle about why we're doing this as well. We want to create high value, inclusive jobs in the region, and these businesses will allow that to happen. But I think also we need to think a little bit about our skills and think forward 5 and 10 years. Who are going to be the workforce who are going to fill some of these roles as well? We want to grow that here as well. And if we talk a little bit about inclusive growth, and we need to bring people who are from perhaps more challenged areas into these jobs and these roles as well, and we need to build the skills in there as well. So I just wonder if we're thinking a little bit, future forward, sort of maybe medium and long term, around how we build the digital workforce of the future and how we start that journey now, because we're great at attracting these businesses, but we're going to have to get the right talent in to make them a real success. So just those 2 points to think about, Chair.
Thank you. Next person is Carl.
Thank you, Chair. I'm smiling, Chair, because it seems all that work that we did when you chaired the Inclusive Growth Panel a few years ago is really having an effect, because I'm very pleased that Martin and now Neville have mentioned inclusive growth, because it's the bedrock of what we do as different committees within the ecosystem of the network. And so it's so, pleasing to see that work is now, and that notion is becoming very much organic within. So I just want to really emphasise the point made by Martin and Neville, and not just to repeat it, but to say that even at the core design stage, we can engage with some of those key stakeholders from some of those disadvantaged minority groups. And it's a principle that little workshop discussion we're going to have at the end of this meeting is going to talk about the importance for co-design to be factored in at the very beginning, because people exist with the talent and ability to contribute at that strategic level. You've got the Black Health initiatives in Leeds and around West Yorkshire. So we have colleagues, Natalie, and myself, who can, we're very happy to pass on contacts for you, as well as the work that then needs to take place systematically within the organisations, in where they can ensure that we're not doing inclusive growth because it just looks nice and it ticks a box, but because of all the reasons just mentioned there, we're missing out on a lot of talent and creative contributions. So I'd like to just kind of register that and offer contact details. And also we have, contacts nationally as well that can very much contribute to what we're doing in this region on inclusive growth, on EDI, and very happy to, connect you to networks as well if need be.
Thanks very much, Carl. I've got Lisa.
Oh yes, thank you. So thank you for that. Sorry. So you've described a landscape which is filled with opportunities for good quality jobs and so on. And just to back up what Neville's just said about getting early on the metrics, and in Leeds we work with a range of, with our anchor organisations, our universities, our healthcare trusts and so on, to ensure that we're paying the real living wage across the board, that we have got a commitment to no fire and rehire and 0 hours contracts, in order to ensure that we've got good quality jobs coming into the region and that pay the right amount, which helps with lifting up the region and defeating the cost of living crisis. So have you got any metrics already? Are you counting those things already?
So it's obviously quite an early stage for us in terms of the strategy and the 5-year ambition that it sets. But I know that within trade and investment, that's the way that it's been approached for a long time, and that's where we're seeing some of those measures coming through. We will be updating the data later this year. Does that help? I think Tom was just going to come in.
So just going to respond to say that we do gather those metrics for any investment into the city region, especially across things like average salary, number of jobs, the amount of capital investment going into the region. Sometimes due to the commercial sensitivity of those projects, we can't publish that exact information because the company has asked us not to. However, we are willing to share the wider implications of that data, I think, when that report comes together every year. So we always aim every year for those 30 investments. We're on track to achieve those 30 investments, and in particular we're able to reference those from the health and life sciences sector.
Okay.
Thank you. Just a quick one. What power do we have to insist on some basic minimums?
It very much depends upon our relationship with the investor. So in some cases we have very, very intense relationships. Other times that we might be going through an intermediary like the Department for International Trade, where they hold the relationship and we're adding value to a particular investor's journey within the region. We do have the capability of asking for that material, but we don't, from my understanding, have many powers beyond kind of asking politely.
Phil's going to tell us about the power going for. Who's got the power? Is it me?
Power. So I'm kind of going to make some general kind of comments on the discussion we've had, and I can address some of those wider points. So I think we've been having a conversation about a sector that's really, really important to our regional economy, which is the health tech sector, and I think we should be really, really proud of this sector. I think some of the stats I've seen, I know there's some stats that are going to be updated that say I think it's true that about 20% of digital health tech jobs in the country are in this region. So it's kind of a clear area for growth. And I'm really pleased to see the performance on this, but I'm also really pleased to hear that conversation, as Carl said, on inclusive growth and how we make sure that we support this sector, which we should be really proud of as a region and really champion as a region, to benefit everybody in the region and to create jobs that benefits everyone in the region. And to answer your question, Lisa, we don't have sharp sticks to make people do things, but we are kind of working on, unfortunately, but we are working on our advocacy and how we have these conversations and how we kind of promote kind of inclusive and fair businesses in our region. And we want to be kind of famous for that. And one of the ways in which we are planning to forge ahead with that is through the work we're doing with our Fair Work Charter and how we use the levers we do have on things like procurement and some of the kind of levers there. But it's a really good point, and it's something we need to keep on at and try and work on. And it's a good challenge. I do also think, and I want kind of Steph and Tom to respond as well to kind of some of the more detailed points if they want to, and I want to give them that opportunity. But I do think we've really
my job now.
yeah, we've really strayed into one of the next items, which is the West Yorkshire Plan and the economic plan, which talks about the wider sectors and how we do that. So I want to bank some of those points for that as well, because I think some of those points are really relevant for what Joe and Jen are going to talk about in a bit. Sorry, Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody else, Paul?
Yeah, just one very quick question, and you may have this covered already, but the Innovate UK submission that you've made, is there anything that anyone in the room can help with that? I appreciate it may be advanced, but I thought I'd make the offer.
Could you clarify, Paul? Do you mean in terms of shaping what's the work to come, or?
I think you said Innovate UK waiting for launchpad status.
Yeah.
I assume there's some process we're working through to.
Yeah. So I mean, we put in the application. I think I'm switched on here. We put in the application with a project team that's drawn, including some partners in the room across private sector, academia and clinical. So we tried to blend together a range of expertise that would then, if we're selected for the Launchpad partnership, that project team will help to shape what's delivered on the ground. But of course, it'd be valuable for that to be linked in through Beacon. That's indeed what we specified in the application. So we're in a wait and see phase, I think, at the moment, but we will engage. Thanks.
Somebody else got the hand up.
I was just going to suggest that maybe Lee might come in and give us an update on the
You're
process.
volunteering, Lee. Okay, Lee, you want to come in?
Yeah,
Innovate UK.
Innovate UK, absolutely.
It's time to lobby.
Well, we are in a process at the moment. The applications are being assessed. I don't have a specific date as to when that's going to be completed by, but hopefully it won't be too much longer. Obviously, I don't have any influence over that. But I would also say that regardless of the outcome of that process, and when we come on to the plan that we're developing at the moment, I'd say we'd want to support the growth of the health tech cluster anyway. And there are other things that we can do as well as or instead of, depending on the outcome of that process. So, there we go.
Thank you very much. Anybody else that wants to come in and have a final say? Thank you very much to the officers for that hard work, and that presentation, a really well written report. And thank you all the members who have actually commented and made contributions. NHS is a complex organisation, isn't it? It's a system. It's not something there. It's a complete entity, and it's a massive system, and it is there to actually make people better, and actually not just make people better, but get people followed in the first place. So far as the metric goes, that's the ultimate outcome from my point of view. And I think health and equality is a massive agenda. And from market access point of view, which Richard mentioned, I think we need to make sure we do everything to actually support market development, because innovation is all part of that drive to actually get people better and get better outcomes. And it's really great to hear that we've got 20% of the skills up north in this region. So there's a real opportunity to actually drive this forward. Lee, you mentioned you've got no influence, so I'm assuming you've got power. Because from my point of view, I've got power, but nobody listens to me. So I think the point I'm making on a serious note is, I think it's about collaboration. And once again, I just repeat what I said earlier on, that this is a collaboration between everybody who's actually sort of like a stakeholder in this room and beyond. Because if you don't get the relationships right, if you don't get that collaboration right, and if you don't have that common understanding of what you're trying to achieve, you know, it's more difficult to actually address some big issues. But I'm always optimistic, and it always inspires me when I come to the Combined Authority that we all facing the same direction. And we've got some great people here, and I'm really pleased that, you know, this strategy has come here, and we need to make it work even better than what it is. So once again, thank you, Steph, for the hard work. So the committee to note the progress under the health tech strategy as it's been developed so far. Endorse the future direction on opportunities to maximise the contribution of the sector. So are we all okay with that? And again, if you've got any comments that you want to make later on, please do feed them in. We'll move on to item 8, West Yorkshire Plan and Economic Strategy. Work's been ongoing to develop a West Yorkshire Plan, setting out an ambitious narrative for the whole region. West Yorkshire Plan will set the trajectory for the long-term plan up to 2040. It will provide a framework for regional activity to meet our shared ambitions. The primary audience for the plan is government, regional partners, residents and other stakeholders. The economic strategy will provide the economic elements of West Yorkshire Plan to realise our ambitions and the vision for 2040 and ensure the economic aims of West Yorkshire Plan are delivered. So can I ask Joe, who will take the committee through the West Yorkshire Plan section of the report, and then Jen will take the committee through the economic strategy section of the report, and then we'll have a conversation. So, Joe, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me, I'm Jo Barham, I'm a policy officer in the strategy team at the Combined Authority. So I was just going to say a few words about the West Yorkshire Plan, the paper and the appendix that have been circulated, and then I'll pass to Jen to talk about the economic strategy elements of it, because the two things are closely aligned. So, as Councillor Pandorf said, the West Yorkshire Plan is going to be a regional document, so to clearly articulate a shared vision, story and ambition for West Yorkshire. So we've previously had the SEP, the Strategic Economic Plan, which set out our ambitions to spend our growth deal. And we've currently got a SEF, Strategic Economic Framework, which is a collection of all our policies and strategies aligned around 4 regional priorities. But what the West Yorkshire Plan will do is set that trajectory for the long term up to 2040. And it'll reflect the changes that have happened in the region, most notably devolution and the new powers and funding that we have. So having that agreed plan means that when we're engaging with stakeholders and speaking to government, we're all speaking with a shared ambition, and we're strengthening those messages because we're all aligned on that same plan. So Appendix 1 that was circulated is a first draft. So just to reiterate, it is a draft, so it's a work in progress, and we're very open to comments and feedback on the draft that's been circulated. At the moment, there's been the main focus on sort of the vision and narrative element. So what we've tried to do there is move away a little bit from sort of lists of data and facts and figures, and draw out some of the more qualitative elements to tell the story of the region. So as well as the vision and narrative, there are 3 priorities. So enabling equality, diversity and inclusion, growing an inclusive economy and tackling the climate emergency. So these priorities will cut across all of our work and all of our activity. And sitting under them, there's a series of aims aligned to our policy areas of work, and then a set of ambitions. And the idea is these ambitions will align to the indicators that we report on in State of the Region. So we've got that consistency across the feedback and the measurement there. So I mentioned the SEF earlier, but what the West Yorkshire Plan will do is replace the SEF to act as the umbrella for all of our existing policies and strategies. So Jen will talk about the economic element of that, but we've also got things like our transport strategy, police and crime plan, and then a series of strategies sitting under those around more detailed areas of our work, so like the health tech strategy that Steph was speaking about. We'll still have the West Yorkshire Investment Strategy setting out how we will fund our projects that will help us meet the ambitions, but the next iteration of the investment strategy will align with the vision of the West Yorkshire Plan. So we're going around committees at the moment, gathering feedback. We're also speaking to business groups and universities and other stakeholders. So we'd really welcome feedback on the content, the language used and anything that's missing from the plan so far. But I'll pause on the West Yorkshire Plan element and pass to Jen now to go through the economic strategy update. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Chair. So to set the context for the economic strategy, I have brought the economic strategy to the group previously, but just to recap for those who weren't in the room, we needed to have an economic strategy that was reflective of our current geography. So we now have a mayoral combined authority, and we work to the West Yorkshire geography. So this is the first time we'll have an economic strategy that works to that geography and under the mayor. It also needed to reflect the fact that we've had very turbulent 3 years economically with Brexit and then pandemic. So we need a strategy that has a realistic starting point, and that allows us to project forward and seize the future opportunities available to us. So that's the reason for refreshing our approach to the economy and to create an economic strategy at this time. We do feel it needs to be aligned to the other work that already goes on across the Combined Authority and across our local authority partners, and therefore we've been working really closely with Joe's team to sit the strategy in the context of the wider piece of work on the on the West Yorkshire Plan, and also make sure that it sits alongside and speaks to things like our employment and skills framework, our Fair Work Charter, our culture and creative frameworks, and all the other policies and strategies like the trade strategy and the digital strategy, the health strategy that sit and enable us to deliver as a combined authority. So where we're at is that the economic strategy is split into 3 sections. One that typically talks about the strengths of the region, and that's something that, following the feedback from the task and finish groups, we're doing more to really highlight where we have unique strengths, and this is drawing on some of the work like the work that Steph has spoken about earlier, where we have some unique characteristics that make us truly special in West Yorkshire and they need to pull through. The second part of the document is our proposed new approach to sectors. This is something I spoke about at the last Beat Committee meeting, but that's been really well received as we've taken it round various groups, including the task and finish group and several committees now, as it's an approach that shifts from the normal approach to economic strategies that feature only high growth and scaling businesses, and looks at the economy as a whole. So for the first time we can talk to the whole of our economy, we can align the Mayor's pledges, and we can begin to work out the implications across the economy and facilitate that growth and opportunity throughout the whole of the economy. So that really allows us to work with those vital businesses, those strategic ones that are strategically important at a West Yorkshire level and nationally, and not losing focus and sight on those scaling businesses. So this approach is really underpinned by our commitment to inclusive growth, and that's why we're pushing for a whole of economy approach and not just one that segments and looks at only the high growth areas. So it's really opened up the discussion around EDI and our wider principles, and it also allows us to really seize hold of our commitments to climate and look at some of the circular economy principles as well. So it's really a model that enables further opportunity and growth as we progress to 2040. So to just give you a sort of summary of the feedback that we've had to date, as I'm sure you might be able to add to this for us, a sense of place is something that really came through as an area where we really needed to identify very succinctly how we are unique, so that our economic strategy was clearly identified as being ours and not something that could have easily been replaced with Greater Manchester or Newcastle or London or wherever. It needs to really speak to the strengths of West Yorkshire. It needs to realise the opportunities that are in front of us, so we've done more to embed the narrative around the core strengths of our universities, and we're doing more to reframe the climate opportunities and the climate narrative. And we've been doing a lot of work with various groups to embed the inclusive growth principles and to ensure that everything we do speaks to our ambition to become an inclusive economy. And then we've made some of these sort of typical tweaks that you would imagine would happen as you're taking a strategy that looks at lots of different strategies across a big geography together to make sure that we're not having any inconsistencies of terminology, or we're not speaking about things at odds with our local authority partners. So there's those sort of normal tweaking processes that are also taking place. In terms of what the final document will look like, we're aiming to include a section on delivery, so that will look at what's actually in the pipeline being delivered over the next 2 years, and then following that we will have some principles that can be utilised by committees like this to look at when new funding streams do become available. How do we make decisions so that we're making the right type of interventions and going on to make the right sort of policies going forwards? So as you would imagine, within those driving principles, we have a commitment to net zero, we have a commitment to technology-enabled business, innovation, export, good work and fair work, and also flexibility and resilience, particularly looking at supporting some of our different business models and ways of working across the region. And just to give you some sort of next steps, we're currently working with the Task and Finish group. We've been to several of the combined authority committees over the past couple of weeks. We do have a second draft now which will go back to Task and Finish group that embeds the feedback from the first round. If anybody would like to contribute at this stage, please do join the Task and Finish group and I'll circulate the draft to you and you can comment, with a view that we'll have something more robust to take back to this committee in March when our next committee meeting is. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for both your updates. Can I open it up now for comments? I've just had another quick look at the strategy, and there is a lot of work that needs doing. We've agreed that. But comments and questions around the ambition. You know, is it too ambitious? Is it under ambitious? Is there too many ambitions? The vision might just need sort of like some reflection on, and also in terms of the other details. Is there anything missing? Is there anything that we need to actually add in? And the West Yorkshire story, you know, we all have a West Yorkshire story. We need to make sure we spend a lot of time on that West Yorkshire story. I've had a quick read at it, and it is a story, but depending on who you are, you don't want to tell a story and it excludes people. So again, just something to reflect on for members to take account of. But anyway, I'll open it up. Who wants to? Carl?
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to suggest and ask a question, really, including of Phil. When we, in the plan, for example, would be useful. So under EDI, could it not be possible then just to say, for example, implementing the North Star report that the authority has just commissioned, and ongoing work with Lloyds Bank and the plan going forward with NatWest and the CREM report?
So there's two reports in this item. So one of them is the West Yorkshire Plan, which is much more kind of along the way and near to, and I think there's a full version in there. The other one's the economic strategy. I think the plan from when we discussed later is to bring some recommendations on EDI to a forthcoming meeting where we'll discuss targets and what we do next. And I'd absolutely expect those to be targets we'd take forward in any plan that we agreed in this committee. So that's a long way of saying yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, just
I'll-
to follow up then,
I'll-
we want to put some more detail around the sort of the EDI, because it's quite light on that, so that will be picked some sort of more detail, what we actually mean by that and what we're doing in the next draft of them.
Thank you. Excellent report. Just a few thoughts as I've sat here. The region's going to be a majority-minority region by 2050. Not really referenced in the report, i.e. in terms of the opportunities of that and what that actually means, what that actually means fundamentally to the region. Equally, the National Mackenzie report identifies that the UK has been stagnant for the reason of groupthink, and diversification of thinking is what's required in order to answer the question that the chair had posed earlier about innovation. So if we're wanting to actually drive a new economy, those are the knowns based on fundamental research that we know what's going to happen. So how do we enable that? How do we unlock that potential? How do we get board-ready, diverse thinkers into places which they traditionally wouldn't be because they don't have the professional capacity? So something a bit more radical in the report. And EDI, EDI failed. EDI came into law in 2010, and it's achieved a number of things in terms of data presentation, but we've not really achieved EDI. There's been a number of failed national reports on EDI. I can't think of what the recent report would have, but it was the CRED report, which was named the No CRED report. So I think we need to be more radical than EDI and take absolute positionality on race, gender, orientation, really clarity and be brave in the region rather than hide behind woolly EDI. Thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, it's really nice to see this, and I do congratulate all the people working on it, because you can see quite a few of the themes that have been talked around over this table really coming through now. So I really thank people for having listened and for making this a really nice consultative process. Brilliant to see productivity so high on the agenda. Really, really welcome that. I think everybody around the table would be welcoming that. Just a little question. It does align with what we said in the Manufacturing Task Force, but there is a line in that task force where we talk about how we're going to define productivity. And it may be that we can't do that in time for this, but just to remind everybody really that is a problem, how you do it. And if we're going to have real credibility with saying that we're majoring on productivity, we do kind of need to bottom that out. Even if we can't get it in this report, it needs to stay high up the agenda. Happy to see the climate change 2038 goal up there written in lights as well. And then on the last thing I wanted to say was on the draft ambitions. Really nice progress on this. I think they're all good ambitions, and you can see they're much more quantified now than they were originally, and that's really, really good. Just one comment from me on the innovation one. And this is probably wrong, but let me just say it anyway. Maybe we should aim to have the best innovation spend outside Oxford, Cambridge and London as our realistic goal. It would also, if we put it in that way, kind of be a little bit of a dig as well, wouldn't it?
Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. I like the way that the story is being developed here. I think it's the first time I've seen a document which starts to really encapsulate the story of West Yorkshire. So I would, again, want to just to thank and acknowledge that. I guess my challenge is something dear to my heart is about entrepreneurship and innovation. We've got a great history here. What do we want to do in the future? And there's been comments made around, should we be the region where we can nurture entrepreneurs? Should we be attracting entrepreneurs because of the innovation ecosystem and the support that we could give them? So that was my only piece, which I think perhaps was missing. We could perhaps be more aspirational about our vision around entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs for the region.
Okay, thank you. Sue?
Thank you. I agree with Martin. I do like the storytelling vein here, and I agree completely with the idea that innovation, particularly from this committee, should be a golden thread through this. I think it should appear a bit more strongly in the regional priorities on page 263. It should appear linked to productivity, maybe along with technology as well, because they feel like important drivers of productivity growth. And I think it might also helpfully link on page 265, where it says investment in R&D at the bottom of the list of ambitions, because that should lead to a boost to business innovation and kind of make the connection there. So if that could be sort of strengthened as a theme, I think that would be important for this committee. And also on Councillor Pandor's point about seeing yourselves reflected in here, I don't think Huddersfield's mentioned, and I can see Kirklees is.
Right.
But see, can anybody spot it? And it's definitely the home of the Centre for Precision Technologies, so it would be nice to see, as well as all the other towns and cities mentioned, that if Huddersfield could get a bit of a name check too. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And I didn't spot the Huddersfield not mentioned. Kirklees, yeah, I'm sure you'll be. Do you want to come in there?
Has everyone made a comment yet? Because I want to say a cover round before going to Joe and Jen. All right.
I've got two more people. Well, so far I've got two. There might be more. Alan?
Yeah, thanks. I think it's a great document. You know, from where I sit in a medium to large size business, it echoes a lot of the issues we're having. A lot of what Andrew said, I think the productivity is critical. I'd question how we link digital to enable that. In our business, a lot of people want extra people rather than looking at a better way of doing it. You didn't mention transport, but I think that's critical. Today in the office, it's taken 3 or 4 of my colleagues an hour and 3/4 getting from Leeds to Murfield because of the motorway. But events cancelled in London because of trains, Christmas parties in Leeds. We all drove to them, much to the disappointment of many people. Didn't drink. It might have been good for our health, I suppose. But yeah, I think there's an awful lot of great stuff in here. The net zero by 2038, that's a really big question being asked by all of our customers. I think the challenge there would be, is that soon enough? Because that's a question I get from everyone. Although I wonder whether that's realistic and therefore perhaps the correct target. I think there's enough ambition in there. It's the delivery. That's where the challenge is. Because it's a fantastic document, but how do you get that right down to help every business and every organisation in the area? I think innovation, you mentioned that's key too.
Thanks, Alan. Very valuable contributions. Neville.
Thanks again. Great report. Really like the focus on the story. Things like productivity, really, really important. There's just one line in there that makes me just a little bit nervous, and maybe it just needs a little bit of clarity. There's a line in there that says, government must recognise the crucial role councils play in growth and provide sufficient funding, and certainly for councils in the long term. Well, given the environment that we're in, what's the likelihood of getting all that money? And if we don't get it, is that a reason for this document to fall over? I don't think that's the intent here. I think we need to be a little bit clear. If we don't get all that money, we're going to have a go at this anyway, because it's the right thing to do. So just something about, you know, our ambition is there, irrespective of, you know, whether we get the support we deserve from the centre. So if we could get that fleshed out, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had more feedback on that section, kind of jars a little bit with the earlier section, so we need to smooth out. But yeah, absolutely, this is still what we want to do, and how do we communicate that in terms of what I'll ask a governor? Maybe that's not quite the right language that we use in the draft.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Phil.
Hi, before kind of allowing Joe and Jen to respond, I just want to say kind of a few words as a wraparound. So thank you for all your comments. So I'm the lead director on 3 committees, and these items have been to all 3, and this has had the most debate in this committee. So really, really good points. So thanks for all of those. I think what I just want to be clear about is there's two products that are going to happen at the end of this. One of which you've seen a draft of, one of which you haven't. So some of the points around the detail of kind of what we're going to do, particularly on the kind of business and economy side, will end up coming probably through in the economic strategy, and the West Yorkshire plan is more overarching. But I wanted to pick up on a couple of themes that we need to make sure we get right in the plan. One of which is making sure we make the most of kind of what our region is in terms of its diversity and its geographic diversity as well. And we're going to have a conversation about diversity in all its forms a bit later, but focused on what Carl wants to talk about, but also kind of capturing all the assets and of the whole region. And Sue, your points are noted. So we'll think about how we do that in terms of our response. It's obviously a challenging thing to do, but we need to get this right if it's our kind of headline document. So thank you for those views.
Thank you. Thank you for the. Do you want to come back in, Joe and Jen? Sorry. Do you want to come back in on any points?
Just very quickly, Chair, if anybody does want to contribute to the task and finish group for the economic strategy, if you could just drop me an email and I'll make sure that you're included, because it would be really useful to have your perspectives as we go through the process. Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to say thanks very much. Really helpful comments. More than happy to sort of take more direct feedback from people of anything that they want to add in. We'll aim to circulate a redraft to the group before taking that draft to the combined authority in March. And the last thing I was just going to say is, so the idea is that we'll have a document that can be kind of a standalone document, but that will be part of a web platform that hosts all of our other policies and strategies. So everything will be in one place. We'll have the West Yorkshire Plan, we'll have the economic strategy, the health tech strategy, and all of our other policies and strategies all grouped together. So that detail, for particular areas of work, you can get that on the web portal. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe and Jen, for excellent report and presentations, and thank you everybody for their contributions. I remember a while ago when we were developing the inclusive growth strategy, and then you had so many reiterations of it, and then we then came up with the inclusive growth framework, which I'm still trying to understand. But anyway, I think the points that we mentioned are really, really vital, and the golden triangle of Cambridge, Oxford and London, what we want to create is a platinum, a pentagon of the 5 local authorities up north, and so we need to sort of like get that word out there. That really, really great. But I think for me, it's a balance between delivery and impact. When I say impact, you talk about the whole impact in terms of inequalities, business growth, everything else. And if you can get that right, that'd be great. And I think it goes back to Alan. I think delivery is the key thing. And to me, delivery and productivity is a must from this committee's point of view. Because if I don't put emphasis on that, then I won't be doing justice to what I've been charged for. So I think on that note, we'll see what comes out of it. Once again, thank you all for your contributions. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 9, Innovate UK West Yorkshire Action Plan. And we've got Lee here, who's got all the power but no influence. I've met Lee a few times, and some great work that his organisation is doing. And you probably know that we had the Innovate Festival a few months ago, and your chief executive Indra Mukherjee, he came here for a few days, and it was a real pleasure to speak to him and work with him. And I think he was quite inspired by the work we were doing. And as part of your action plan, you're developing local place-based strategies to drive innovation. And for West Yorkshire, this builds on a long history of collaboration. And we saw the first area to sign the memorandum of understanding with Innovate UK back in 2018. And Andrew, you were the chair then. So you actually set the foundations of something that we can springboard off further. And it's an Innovation UK plan developed in partnership with West Yorkshire. So Sarah, you want to brief us? And I know you've been doing a lot of work. So tell us all about this, and we'll then have a conversation with the committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So as you say, this has been a long-standing relationship and long-standing collaboration to work closely with Innovate UK. We did sign one originally, but the world has moved on significantly in the last 5-6 years, particularly our geography. We've got a mayor, Innovate UK now part of UKRI, and we've been through a pandemic, and we're going through extraordinary crisis as well as that right now. So now is the time to recommit to our relationship and our partnership with Innovate UK to drive business innovation in the region, not just for growth and productivity, although those are really important obviously, but for resilience and survival right now. We've got a real challenge around innovation is a key opportunity for all our businesses. So we are committing to developing this action plan with Innovate UK. It is Innovate UK's action plan for West Yorkshire, with West Yorkshire, developed in collaboration with West Yorkshire, so we're doing it very much as in partnership, hence they're bringing the paper today and the kind of the key actions that we want to see as part of that for discussion. When we've kindly got it sorted and designed up, it's going to look way more interesting than the couple of pages that you've got in as part of that report. And then we've got the launch event on the 21st of February, which is being kindly hosted at Nexus. Thank you, Martin. Where we're going to have a really big celebration about innovation in the region, about this partnership, about the opportunities, shout loudly about some great successes and hear from some real businesses about some of their innovation stories. So if anybody around this table and this committee hasn't had an invite to that or hasn't registered yet, then please let me know, because it's really important that we champion this and we kind of really shout loudly about some of this great stuff. And we're really hoping to get a lot of press coverage on the back of this. So I'll hand over to Lee to talk about some of the details in the plan and what Innovate UK are trying to get out of this as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, yeah, just stepping back a little bit, I suppose, and providing some of the background, that covered a little bit there. We're delivering the National Innovation Strategy for Bayswater. We're a key delivery agency of that, and within our plan for action, as Councillor Pandor just said, we're looking at how we link what we're doing nationally to what's happening locally, and aligning on shared priorities, and that's really very important to us. I know it's very important to Indro. He's making a lot of effort at the moment to building the relationships with different parts of the UK, and as we've already said, West Yorkshire has had and got a long-standing relationship with Innovate UK, and we want to build on that. We want to support the growth of innovation clusters. That comes out in our plan for action as well, and we want to be acting as a key player, key agency within the wider ecosystem, not just from a strategy and policy perspective, but across our products and services as well. So that's Innovate UK KTN, Innovate UK Edge, and Catapult network. And we are developing this in partnership, because we recognise the fact that actually to deliver the outcomes that we're looking for, we need to be working in partnership. We need to understand the landscape like you understand it, and be building on your knowledge and strengths and priorities, linking to things like the economic strategy that's been discussed today, linking up on things like equalities, diversity, inclusion, skills and talent, and really drive productivity and growth and resilience through business innovation. And we want to work alongside you to deliver what we can in support of your ambitions. So yeah, we've had the Memorandum of Understanding in place since 2017, and as Sarah's just said, this is sort of the next iteration of that, on how we can bring what Innovate UK does across the UK into West Yorkshire and meeting those challenges and helping deliver the growth. Hopefully questions is probably the best way to go from there, I think.
Right, I'll take questions and comments and bring you back in at the end. So put your hands up if you want to make any questions or comments, Andrew. And then Phil.
Yeah, just a comment or a request, really. I think, Lee, that the word entrepreneur doesn't come into your action plan anywhere, and that I think does link. Certainly, regionally, we link it with innovation. Most of the entrepreneurs that are doing things that we're aware of and that we deal with around this committee have got some kind of innovation, and I think it would be good for you to be plugged into that as well, at least from a knowledge point of view. Even though it's maybe not necessary to say it, because the other ways that you're working will pick it up in theory, but I think it's a strand that would be worth looking at.
Yes. Thank you. Phil?
Hi. I think it's great, because I've been involved for some time, and I was there when the MOU was originally signed. And yeah, it feels like there's a bit more legs, which is really good. It takes a lot to start to move. I do think, if I think about I'll call it the skills gap of business leaders, those that have got ideas, to get to the point of in Innovate UK or KRI and apply for funding and grants, it's particularly challenging. You need a whole set of skill sets to do that. And I know as a business that's applied for these type of grants, so it's very competitive as well. So that skill gap is really, really key. Because we know from the statistics that
area, but other areas. But yeah. So that's the first one, just to keep the thread of support for business. And I think I don't know if it drops into the other. It's not just Innovate UK, but there is other government-based organisations that provide funding streams from an innovation perspective, and the Tide Cross. And I think it'd be nice to start to see some of them within the innovation streams that we have, not just Innovate UK, who've been around the table for a long time. I know of like the DCMS that comes further down, but within technology, 5G and infrastructure, there is support there. It's still very hard to navigate, but it involves collaboration across multiple organisations, particularly within the universities. And we've had some success as a business with funding from that route in 5G sort of development. But there's the DSTLs of the world, if anybody knows, the defence and science labs, and I think there's tie-up with the technologies in the med-based sectors, and that directly applies into that, and you can kind of lever funding from a business perspective in Innovative. And there's one called DARSA, which is a defence accelerator, but that's increasingly in the space sector, and it's really quite wide. But I would say the barrier is really quite hard, and it's quite difficult to enter. So that has to be continued theme to get it onto the ground, really.
Thanks very much. We've got 15 minutes to go through a number of items, so I'm not saying don't put your hands up and don't talk, but can we be quick? And I'm going to apply the rule to myself as well, so I'm not going to say much. Peter.
Just very briefly, I really welcome this, and in particular, it talks about driving cluster development and clusters. Now, a couple of weeks ago, the Science Minister identified 30 clusters outside the Golden Triangle. I guess my question is to Innovate UK, what are you involved in terms of defining those clusters with BEIS, and what can we do to ensure that our clusters, some of which we've talked about today, are on that national list?
Yeah, so I know that Indro and my manager, Dean Cook, used to do my role, so you might know him, working closely with BEIS and the Minister and around our support for clusters and innovation within those clusters. I don't have the detail, but I know that they are working closely together, and I'm sure clusters will be an important part of that, and how we support innovation within them specifically.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Martin?
Can I just make a quick comment? Because I think what struck me is in 2.2, the size of that gap compared with the UK average. Do you have more information that you can share on that? And obviously it's a massive range, 2.5 million to 50 million.
Yep, so we've done the analysis, so we can share that, yeah.
Yep, okay. Any more? No, thank you. So that report is for notice and feedback to Innovate UK regarding what.
Yeah, we've had some input into the plan, and we're really pleased to see that. And it's going to be an ongoing topic, and we've got the event next month, haven't we? That many of you are involved with.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 10, business and innovation activity. I'm not going to say much. I'm just going to bring Louise Allen in to swiftly take us through this and take comments afterwards. Louise.
Thank you. I'm going to be quick and very conscious of time. So there are two things that I want to draw your attention to. There's a progress update on the UK SPF Pillar 2, supporting local businesses, open call for projects. So if anybody's got any comments or questions around that, I'm happy to take them. Secondly, which probably is a bit more of a discussion, so if there's an easier way of me getting this information without taking up too much time, we're wanting to think about the ways that we target businesses in our new wave of programmes. So we've got a little bit more flexibility now that we're not European funded and funded through Gainshare and SPF. So it was really to get the committee's feedback on how we could best target businesses, which businesses should we be targeting, should it be different to the businesses we've targeted before? But like I say, I'm conscious of time, so if you want me to send that out in an email for feedback, that would be fine.
Thank you, Louise. Any comments, Sue?
Thank you. Yes, just on the SPF topic about the business support call, I was looking with interest at how the feedback from the session before Christmas, where we were all consulted on priorities, had evolved. And the topic that I thought would be reflected in there, because it came up in the discussion group but isn't, is the idea of helping SMEs by placing graduates into them to work on projects to drive innovation and connectivity. So that's not mentioned explicitly, whether it would come under the innovation and health theme, or whether it's something that is falling down between the cracks of this committee's remit and also the skills committee. So I know it's had a lot of support in the past through this group. Now Mandy Ridyard's spoken in support of this idea that you can really drive productivity and innovation within small businesses in particular by bringing graduates in for short periods. And so that seems to have disappeared, and I just wondered if that's a deliberate or whether that's part of the open call.
Where's it gone?
So it's not. I don't think it was in contention for SPF in any case, but I think it's something we're still interested in trying to explore, and a really good way of getting great relationships between institutions and small businesses, alongside kind of knowledge transfer partnerships, the graduate relationship. So we're really interested in exploring it with the funding envelope we've got available.
Andy?
Yeah, just on the questions from 2.26, we don't often talked about it. I think it's a really important point for this group. Should we be supporting B2C, business to consumer type operations? And my view would be yes. And I think the fact that we don't have anybody from that kind of sector around this table probably is a miss. And I would suggest that maybe for the future we do look at that.
Quick answer is we are. So as Henry mentioned earlier, the energy grant scheme, most of the applicants that have been successful so far have been from the retail and hospitality sector, which is an example of B2C, and we have the freedoms and flexibilities to do that now. So we're definitely interested in exploring that, and a great shout on the representation. We need, that's something we probably need to look at over time.
Thank you very much. Any more questions or comments? If not, you can please feed in to Louise anything that you want feeding in. Item, is that all you wanted therefore from this term, feedback and the financial contribution to MPI?
Correct. I think is it right that the committee need to approve that financial contribution, or is it just a note that we're doing it?
It's a note for the committee to note that.
Yeah, it says to approve a modest financial contribution to AMPI, Advanced Machinery Productivity Institute. Yeah, so we've got nods up, so great stuff. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 11, digital update. Again, I won't say much on this. I will go straight to Marion Hewitt, who will take the committee through the key points. Marion.
Hi, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Marion Hewitt. I'm the Programme Development Lead for Digital. The last digital update to this committee was in July regarding the Digital Skills Plan, so thank you all very much for your input into that. This paper updates on the Digital Skills Plan, but also the wider activities surrounding the digital agenda. Digital is a cross-cutting issue. It's come up in almost every paper, almost every item today, which is testimony to that. In the interest of time, I will just point out the 5 key elements of the paper: the digital blueprint, the digital clusters research, the LEP deep dive on digital, the formation of the local digital partnership, and the launch of the Digital Skills Plan. And I'd be keen to hear your feedback and take your questions on those.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the paper that Marion has just presented? Philip?
Just wonder if you could let me know. It's often there's a bit of a thing. There's digital, and then cyber and security that sit with it. But where do you see that fits in this?
Thank you. I think this fits into the definition of digital as a wider conversation that I think the local digital partnership should look at in the first instance. I think when we're looking at digital in terms of business, there's digital first businesses and there's digitally enabled businesses. I think that's quite a useful way to define them, so cyber would fit in the former.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments from Sue?
Yeah, just a quick one. It says in the financial implications that to deliver the actions will require funding. You've not kind of got to the stage yet, presumably, to scope out the extent of that funding. How big a priority might that be in relation to other priorities in this committee's remit?
In terms of the financial implications on the paper, the digital skills interventions are the ones named in the paper. They are going through consultation right now and with anticipated delivery for September.
You got a figure for those? Do you know how much we're investing in those?
As part of the entire skills package, including green, digital and skill support for business, it's 6 million.
Thank you very much. Is that okay, Sue? Yeah. Okay, I can't see anybody else putting their hands up. And now we are ahead of time, which is brilliant. Item 12, date and time of next meeting. Wednesday, 29th of March at 2 p.m. I'm assuming everybody's got that in their diaries. How is that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I should do.
Okay, thank you very much for all your contributions. Thank you to the officers for the excellent reports, and thank you to all the members for your valuable input and time. We will now close the formal part of the meeting. We'll turn the cameras off, and then once we turn the cameras off, you will let us know.